Saturday morning. This is the Art of Rock, and I want to thank you all for turning up. And it's nothing but booyah this morning. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the Tongva people as being the traditional landowners of Hollywood, California. Every Tuesday, Saturday morning here, this is the Art of Rock, and we're talking about helping you make your art, overcoming writer's block, moral issues, everything. Maybe not moral issues, I don't know. Every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. LA time or 12 o'clock New York time or 6 p.m. Berlin time. I don't know if I got that right. Sorry, Alex. There, Angelspit's Twitch or Angelspit's YouTube. It's a whole sack of booyah. This is brought to you by Angelspit's Patreon. Feel free to give $1. Feel free not to give $1. This is all about making your music happen. And if you just want to sit back and watch, then do it. Angelspit's new album is there. It's called Red End, and it's fucking ballin', and I'm proud of it, and I'm happy with it because it's evil. Evil's good. There's more evil here, which is the Industrial Incisions playlist. Jump on that, get yourself some new music, and if you're on the Patreon, please send me your tracks so that I may pimp your music. Talking of pimping, Wednesday night, join us at Vulture Culture. Best deep dive into synths, I think, on the web. It's bloody awesome. That's Alex doing Vulture Culture. We're always there, and it's bloody excellent. I feel obligated to put Angelspit's Discord in there. I don't know how to use Discord because I'm a noob. After this, we're going to shoot on over to MTV TV. There is amazing music waiting for you there. You will go, and we're going to raid there anyway. And if you've got a video, send it to them, and they will play it. MTV TV also has a Patreon. And you need to love that. You need to back that because it's awesome. If you're concerned about American democracy and you want to do something about it, join Indivisible. I say that every week. I sometimes wonder how many people actually do that, but we'll find out. Rezi, thank you for hosting. Hey, Alistair, go
Always
love
a
Rezi
pleasure.
shit. Thank you, Rezi. You are the shining Muad'Dib. And today, hopefully, we're going to be joined by these creatures as well. These creatures of darkness who shall be possibly joining us. And I've got so many things. Welcome as I attempt to go live on bloody Instagram. Hi, Instagram. This is the Art of Rock. Okay, so we were talking about a whole bunch of things to talk about, and I have forgotten already. Let's talk about recent acquisitions. It's always about gear horns, isn't it? We're going to be talking about design later on. We're also going to be talking about acquiring secondhand gear, but recent acquisitions. Go,
Well, I can go.
please.
Um, this sort of started out with I'm for the past how many years I've been on this show, maybe 3 or 4 years, talking about what I don't like about control surfaces and what I wish I could do with a control surface and griping and griping. And I finally started prototyping and designing a very specific thing. And this is for my editing workflow when comping vocals. And I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. One knob that does the clip gain, one knob that does the clip pitch, fine, with acceleration, with some chunking of the undo buffer so it doesn't pollute that, and a whole bunch of like light feedback and stuff. And I was planning on, getting some rotary encoders and building a box and stuff, but I'm prototyping it with stuff that I have sitting around. That led to starting to get a feel for what a well-designed surface could do for me, and I decided the thing that's sort of been on my list has been the Melbourne Instruments Roto Control, which they released a couple of years ago, a synth that had drone motors for the knobs, so that when you recall a patch, the arrow was pointing to the right place for that patch, or if you did automation, it would reflect it. And I thought that was obviously a neat gimmick. I mean, well, that's amazing. I want motorized faders on everything all the time, but a synth with them, hey, cool. So they finally released this, which is way less expensive than buying their whole synthesizer. And well, it's interesting. It's an amazing little piece of gear. I have found one limitation that broke the deal for what I bought it for, and one workflow that it was kind of revolutionary for. So maybe this is food for thought for people. I know it's a long preamble to basically 2 points about it, but you can't do increment decrement encoders with this thing, even though the control knobs are not really knobs. They're rotary encoders. They fake stop at places where you set them to. So you actually hit a hard stop there, and it clicks past it or flips back. It's a pretty cool and very convincing haptic sensation, or real sensation. But there's no mode in which you can set them to standard MIDI controller increment decrement or whatever the various types of that. You can only do numbered continuous controllers, like the standard ones, with some other things that you can do, but it really restricts it from doing the thing that I meant, which is just, turn a knob and it accelerates as you whiz the knob. Doesn't have that, can't do it. But the way that the software is designed, talking about those kinds of limitations, is there's basically a good chance if you hit a button in Ableton Live, it's going to do the thing that you wanted it to do. The thing that I wanted it to do anyway. And when I'm holding a guitar, playing some guitar, and reaching for the mouse pointer and trying to find a small target on the screen, that's a frustrating experience. It's not fun. It's not like, shredding and rocking out by any stretch. Whereas this thing sticks to the devices. There's a mode, you click a couple of buttons. It's not too complicated to get there. You hit, like mode and then plug-in mode. And suddenly the thing is in amp control, because the amp is the thing that's on that track, and it's the last thing that it did. So, you go through a one-step process of assigning it to, I've got gain, bass, middle, treble, the usual things you'd have on the front panel of an amp. And I can turn the gain and turn the tones and do things like sculpting sound like you do with a guitar amp. Built-in Ableton stock effect. This thing reads the parameters, names them, shows them on the screens. I know which ones they are. The positions of the knobs indicate where they are. It doesn't matter what's on my screen at any time. And I have found that to be promising. If I can assign maybe 3 or 4 more effects that I routinely use and have that kind of predictable, I read the labels kind of business, and the mode is a couple of clicks away, I'm pretty happy with how that works. So, didn't get me to do my my editing thing. Transport controls are still a couple of clicks away. I don't know if I'm going to use it for that, but for this one purpose so far, pretty neat, pretty different experience. And I could see continuing to leave it hooked up, unlike so many other controllers that end up, in the drawer or doing other things, or falling apart before I even record a single thing with them. If anybody has been considering this thing or has any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But that's my long story and short review about specific applications and failures for that thing. So yeah, pretty cool.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Is that USB powered?
It is not bus powered by anything that I have yet. Probably if you had something that was doing PD, like true USB-C shaped power delivery, it would. Right now I have 2 cables hooked up to it, one for a USB PD power supply and the other one for data to the computer. But it also has MIDI ports, so you can do standard DIN5 MIDI ports.
Good, it has MIDI ports.
Yeah.
Sounds great. I'm sure there will be firmware updates that will fix everything. They will fix everything. Thank you, Rezi. Ivan, hit me with your funky stick of rhythm and love.
Yeah, so I'm trying an experiment here. Trying an experiment. I picked up the UAD SSL-E channel strip, which is a SSL 4000E channel strip, and I am parking that on all of my tracks and using it like a channel strip, which previously I had not done, and I'm hoping that I can get used to this thing and use it properly. So far, it seems to be doing a pretty nice job.
Can I ask, did you get the hardware control surface one or the software
I got the
plugin?
software. I got
Okay,
the plugin.
cool. Just making sure.
'Cause, I scored a fairly sweet deal on, some UAD plugins, and so I just bought some UAD plugins because they're, like they do make good plugins. And I got the plugin version of plugins instead of like the SSL, their UAD box.
My other question real quick is it's a channel strip, but does it have the bus compressor on every channel? Like,
It does.
of course. I mean, that's basically what I use, the Ableton Live clone of it. So that's the quick,
Yeah.
easy
Yeah,
compressor.
this combines, a bus compress, like it combines a whole bunch of tools into one place, and like that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted it, was just like to reduce the potential load of plugins that I'm using at once, and fairly happy with it so far.
I've had the pleasure of working on a G series SSL desk, and they are fantastic. Obviously, I mean, duh, that kind of goes without saying
Yeah.
if you like that sort of thing. But yeah, that's very cool. Carl, give me a wave if you're okay there.
Yeah, I'm great.
Just making sure things that are tight for you.
Yeah, things are tight.
Okay, good.
Uh,
Ivan,
yeah.
anything else about that you've done with it, like in specific applications
Oh
before
yeah,
we
no,
recorded?
I pulled a new thing out of my butt, and I'm working on this new song that's it is I'm very happy with it so far. Also, last week I mentioned that I recorded a bunch of, metal box moving, and I provided the link to the like source, to us last week.
That was
Um,
wicked. I heard that. It was wicked.
I
Hold on, wait. Where is this link?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It should be in both Discord and up on the Patreon channel.
You can drop that in the chat here if you want. I wouldn't
Yeah,
mind.
that would be great.
Kind of into
I will
that.
get around to dropping it in the chat. But I mean, the cool thing is I took chunks of that and, like threw those into, various tools in Ableton. And the sounds I am making are kind of amazing. I was really hoping I could get a good, kick out of it, but no, I'm not getting that. But I am getting these really nice. It made a really cool sound while I was dragging it across the floor, and it was like shaking and squeaking and wailing, and
This is the shit I miss out on when I miss a week. That's freaking awesome.
okay, I will paste that link in because it is super cool. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, it reminds me of a project I did for sound design a really long time ago. I didn't have anything large in metal, but I had a lot of small metal things, and I just pitched them down. So I mean, similar dragging coins across the metal
Yeah.
desktops and stuff. But I'm eager to hear that. Hey, Rob, what you got?
Yeah, I been a little while. Couple of things I got recently was I wanted to upgrade. I like to upgrade all my hardware just to make sure that I got the best of the best in there to muck around. And I ordered the setup EPROMs for the Kurzweil 2000R. I've got the original 1.3, which has all the goodness in it, but I've come deep diving into that since Vulture Culture mucked around with my keyboard. I realized that I'm still missing a lot of capability, and some of that relates to more SCSI, more CD-ROM control, more file format supportability that 1.3 doesn't give you, but 3.87 does.
Interesting.
So I'm gonna do that update. That's on the hardware side.
So they're actual EPROMs, maybe a pair that you put in, and that redoes the system. That's where the whole operating system is stored, and you get a new machine.
Yeah. And the other thing I had was I was getting kind of frustrated because I got EMAX 2 and I got an ESI 2000, and none of that shit talks to each other. So I can put it all on the same SCSI channel and read from the drives. Thank you. Awesome. Just got delivered coffee.
Wow.
I can get the share SCSI to SD cards. They can share CD-ROM, but they can't really change file formats. And so the last piece of hardware that I bought begrudgingly was an iLock USB, because I bought MIDI Quest Pro. Thank you, Demon Hate. Freaking amazing piece of software. So I was tempted to buy Omnisphere from Vulture Culture's demo, but for that price tag, wasn't really something I wanted to do. But I got MIDI Quest Pro, and I've got 33 hardware instruments as VSTs now.
Oh man, that's amazing. I think that we've probably sold more copies of MIDI Quest on this show in the past 3 months than they've sold the rest of the year.
It's freaking amazing. I know Brett can attest to it, but it's great because you get a VST for every single piece of hardware that you've got in your studio. And the only downside was there was only 2 pieces of gear that it didn't support: the EMAX 2 and the EMU ESO 2000. So, big deal. Not a problem, but it does support the Kurzweil. It supports all of my Korg Yamaha stuff.
That's pretty satisfying when you get the whole full rank of little images of your stuff and you can click on them. The only thing I used it for, and I had a cracked copy for some reason 15 years ago, was my Guitar Pod 2.0 main original one. And it was nice because there's some knobs that you have to hold shift for. And in the VST, the UI, at least there were separate knobs and switches for everything. So I've had a good experience with them also, although I haven't used it in a very long time, nor do I own it currently.
I think
which is the best module?
Well, they're all good. The thing is what I noticed was that if you've got any hardware that's modern that already has USB, they probably won't support it. So Korg Modwave Mark II doesn't support it, but it doesn't matter because it's got USB. The TC Helicon Extreme Live doesn't support it, but that's got USB. Don't need to support it. It's all good. What was really cool, which was a real surprise, was that it supports the Yamaha O1V mixer as well as the O2R mixer. And I'm fascinated to deep dive into that. When I've looked in there, I can see like 68 tracks of my expanded mixer in there. And it's like, wow, where is this going to end? This is like a bottomless pit, but it's good. I can either stand there and play with the mixer, or I can look at it on the computer and work out how am I using this thing better. And I would say that the MIDI Quest Pro app is definitely helping me make better use of my existing gear.
Hell yeah.
Hands down.
If I may, so Rob and Brett, so does it support EMAX 1, EMAX? You said no to the EMAX 2, emulator 1, 2, 3. Does it
it's all Proteus series stuff that it supports. It's the latest stuff.
Okay, because all of the older stuff is not MS-DOS compatible. Like they use a different operating system. And I mentioned to you, is it EMXP or eMusa? I always get confused between the two. EMXP is so that's the software you have to use.
Yeah.
And not very many things. Chicken Translate does, but nothing else will talk to EMAXs.
Right.
So you have to go through EMXP.
That's the problem.
And I've got a bit of a video on EMXP and how to. There's a lot of fandangling around because you're talking to 1985. And the EMAX 2, it's the same thing. It's fundamentally the same operating system. And EMAX 2s will read EMAX 1 files because you have to load them as a compressed file, and it can save EMAX 1 files, which is called compressed files. So they kind of technically talk together, but because this is one thing that I've always found about the EMAXs, which is a real pain in the ass, or a real cute treasure. I don't know what the correct term is.
Question, Rob. With all those devices, what are you using for your MIDI patch bay to get the bidirectional happening?
I have a MIDI timepiece MTP AV, and it's the old parallel printer port version that plugs into my XP box, which runs a lot of old classic software as well.
Cool. So and that has multiple inputs.
Yeah, MIDIQuest has some challenges with using those types of devices, and it's in their release notes that they have some little quirkiness about that, but I haven't had any problems at all so far. And I have multiple instances of some of my synths as well, so I've got a couple of each of a few things, and it manages those fine. You just
plays
put them on
along.
a channel. Yeah.
I was using a JL Cooper MSB Plus back in the day for that. Got 2 inputs and lots of outputs, but it would switch 2 inputs at a time. Rather, it would switch pretty reliably using program changes.
Yeah, so that's my latest little acquisition, and it's been a bit of a life changer. Thanks, Brett, for all your help on that.
Good on you. Thank you. Thank you very much. This sounds mind-blowing, Rob, because all of this translating stuff's always very interesting. Ivan, welcome back. Your hand's still up. Okay, thank you. That's okay. Brett, talk to my face.
How's it going, everyone? Raziel, I had a question for you about your new device. Do you think you'll be or do you think you'll have the ability to use that as a pedal to do those changes?
Interestingly, M-Wave Chocolate Bluetooth device with a Roland. This is a Roland FV60 from 1985, probably. This is what I've been using for momentary contact pedals. Plus, it has the secondary function if you hold it. And this does obviously whatever continuous controller you're assigned to it. And I think you can, maybe it's just the one. So the short answer is no. There's MIDI inputs where you could do something through it maybe, but the real strength in this thing is the front panel motorized rotaries and the labels on the little LCD screens. Doesn't have a lot of pedal inputs or CV inputs or anything like that, just the MIDI and USBs. So it's kind of philosophically a dead end. Like it's meant to be an appliance in that way. Not a lot to add to it.
Okay. Yeah, because I was kind of thinking there, obviously, if you're rocking out, you've got both of your hands full. And so I was like, well, if you wanted to input something at that moment, you almost, that was where I was going with that. But okay.
As far as punch goes, man, I don't know if we can launch into the other device that I was designing at the same time as the clip gain and clip pitch adjuster piece of hardware was a transport control, which I've also talked about for years. And I actually got that prototyped on my Korg Nano Control and also on the Axiom 25. The Axiom because it has true endless rotaries, but that, I'll try to keep this short. Punch in, punch out, enable and disable are 2 separate buttons. If you hold the punch in and punch out buttons, it'll pick up the location that the playhead is at and turn that into your punch in. Hold the other button at the new location and turn a couple of knobs. It'll scroll the playhead position and drop you, make that your punch out position if you hold it again. And I'm working with the timings Python for the Ableton live control surface script. That is going to be a different device. It's going to be really sick. But again, I thought I'd be using the roto control for that. Not really what it's made for. It wants to do what it wants to do. Yeah, you can do MIDI CCs, but it's kind of a waste because, the bidirectional control. Anyway, transport control with punch in, punch out, like it's, your sidecar from your old Studer, tape deck, and that stuff also has a pedal.
Okay.
There will be a punch in on the fly pedal for that, but everything I have has a sustain pedal input that'll be mappable in Ableton Live. So I'm at no shortage of, momentary contact pedal inputs. But I'm really actually getting going with this finally. And I have working Ableton Live control scripts for all of these things now, where before I had just some ideas about how I wanted it to work. So it's kind of exciting doing all the the feedback to the lights and making the timings work and debouncing the key presses so that they never duplicate and all that crap. It's been an interesting trip.
No, I'm definitely interested in your progress on that. Yeah, that's literally where my brain went. It's like, okay, if I were going to apply that, then I'd probably want to get it into that form factor so that I could actually have my hands free to keep doing
Hands-free,
what they're
punch on the
doing.
fly. Absolutely.
Yep.
And like one of the other functions, Brett, that I had is one of the knobs is assigned to adjusting the in and out points. So that it's a continuous controller with acceleration. If you zip it, it'll change your out point to later. So if you're looking at your waveform, you've got a knob. You could do that on a pedal just as well. I mean, it's going to be constrained to the extents of the thing, but this is like exactly what I'm talking about. For in performance, when you don't want to look at your screen and move your pointer around and find the little thing, you've got a knob there that's dedicated to this task and it can't do anything else. And that's kind of a lesson I'm taking from the roto control, is these just do the thing that they do. And certainly a punch in now pedal is absolutely in the design spec for what I'm doing. So right there with you.
Isaac, those samples that you shared, I want to just let you know I did listen to that, and that was they are as badass as you say they are. I thought you had done something to it, and I had to actually listen to it like for a few minutes to realize this is something moving across the floor. The only thing I would have said, but it would have been awesome in that regard, if somehow you could have stereo mic'd that to where when you put it on headphones, you were just in that environment. But believe me, you can accomplish all the same things with plenty of different other effects. So kudos to that.
Yeah. I literally just shoved the Zoom into the cabinet. I figured I'd pick up some of the resonance of it then.
Oh, you definitely captured the resonance. You've got enough resonance there to do anything you want. Rob, yes, MIDI Quest is awesome. This also goes to Carl as well. I did not see EMAX in the list. I see plenty of EMU, but I think you're right there. I think it's just not compatible, different file set or something. But Rob, I also wanted to share with you on my K2000, I've got the firmware 3.54J. And that doesn't seem to have all the same issues that you ran into or were discussing. I remember a lot of that discussion was about sampling and how to get samples in and out of the system. And I'm telling you, I can get it with my SCSI. I use a jazz drive just because I don't want to be removing zip disks. The other thing about that is I have a USB to iOmega interface, and I can connect that straight to my PC and pull everything off of it. The other upgrade that I did that works really well, though much more tedious, is the floppy drive part, or the floppy drive upgrade. I replaced my floppy drive with a USB floppy drive. I did not do the USB SCSI. I did not replace that front with a SCSI because I wanted to be able to keep the ability, if someone like you, for example, has disks and you hand me something in 1.54 megabit file, then I can take that and introduce it back to the system in its native expected format. However, I am interested, and I did actually look into it a little bit more. There's not only a firmware update, but there's actually a difference in hardware on the K2000 where it comes to a lot of that sampling. The sampling actually has a different board that actually goes into it as well. And I don't know if it's a daughter board or what, but I know the back of the K2000 series is also molded to fit that board. So it makes me think that it might actually be a primary thing.
Yeah, it's a SMPK is the keyboard version, and the SMPR is the rack version. And the rack version has more connectivity than the keyboard version because it's got more space on the front and the rear. And that is a dedicated board that needs the setup EEPROM for it specifically, assuming that you don't have any other ROMs. If you do have other ROMs, then you've just got to get the right setup EEPROM to cover your hardware configuration. and the sampling gives you a lot. The sampling board introduces more functionality to the K2000 than your non-S version does. So yeah, that's and what you're talking about with Jazz Drive and Iomega and that's one of the reasons why I'm upgrading my EEPROM, is I want more flexibility in that regard as well.
I'd also look at the RAM updates. I was able to get mine up to.
Doesn't that take regular 30-pin Sims from like 1990?
Single-sided. Yep,
it
single-sided
does.
RAM. Yep.
There's also a daughter board and it does require a little bit of soldering. Disk. Okay, when you want to find something, you never can, right? Oh yeah, there it is, right there in front of me. 422K is my memory. I'm currently at 65 meg of sample memory.
How much?
65 meg.
Holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I thought the max was 64, but
it
yeah,
is
that's good.
without the daughter board. And the daughter board does have a couple of places you have to solder to make it work, but they exist, and you can jack that sample memory way up. I'll leave on that note.
Thank you very much. Okay, I just want to jump in really quickly. So Ivan's got these samples that everybody's talking about. Those samples are here. Thank you very much, Ivan. You're bloody legendary. Secondly, we're also talking about EMAX, EMXP. EMXP is software that will talk to your PC, to the EMAX, because the EMAX is a different galaxy of bloody sound format, and you can't just get stuff across. Although you can, if you use you can do MIDI dumping. You can do SMIDI, sample MIDI dumping, and it takes a while, but it will work. I did a video on this. That's the link to the video, and at 14 minutes 33 seconds, I go through converting a WAV file into an EMAX format via EMXP. Also, Angelspit's got a website devoted to the EMAX. Boom, angelspit.net/EMAX. Who would have guessed? And it's got a whole bunch of stuff on there. Rob, talk to me, and then I'm going to jump in after you.
Yeah, there's a link there for the EMXP.net as well. I have the same software. It's good.
Cool.
Yeah, you know, Razzie and Brett, you're asking about using pedals with your control surface, and you know, Raz, I got to compliment you. Space is always a premium, and that the size of that little guy that you've got there is freaking awesome, because space is never something you can easily buy.
The last thing that I grabbed was a company's full-size, full-thickness motorized fader surface, and that was it. That was my whole desk. I was like, it's only 8 faders, but yeah, this thing fits.
Yeah. My favorite go-to is really big. It's the Novation SL49 Mark III with all the templates built in. It has dual MIDI out. It's got CV, you know, gate, all that stuff. It's freaking awesome. But the problem is, it's just too big. It's too big to have in front of your workstation. It's great on a keyboard stand, but then it's kind of not handy. I kind of gave up, like what you and Brett were talking about, to have pedals and everything for performance. I gave up. What I did instead was Carl got me onto this Yamaha mixer. And what it does is it allows you to go record everything, you know, off board, and then play it all back in virtual tracks through the mixer. And you've got, like, was it 6 or 8 auxiliary channels? So you can have all of your effects stuff in front of you on a board or a desk, and you can tweak the crap out of that and record it all back as a live performance however you want. So it's almost like you perform your bass guitar, you perform your keyboards, your vocals, everything, like you record it all. Then you play it all back, and you can just keep messing with it over and over again until you're kind of happy with it. And You know, you don't have to automate it, but you can. You know, different ways of automating it, whether it's in the DAW or not. But I kind of overcome that problem because I had one of those clanky MIDI controller footboards that had I think it was 6 or 8 MIDI controls on it.
Like the FBC 1010.
Yeah, the FBC one. It was a little hokey, but I never really got into it. I never found it as a good expression tool. Whereas, you know, what you've got is you've got all the expression at your fingertips. So yeah, good purchase.
And they're labeled and they point where they really are, you know, in the program. Those are two features that make all the difference.
How much was that, Raziel?
Say again?
How much was your device that you bought?
Oh, I don't know.
I'll look it up. All right. That's all I got, Carl.
You know. Box. Hey, one thing before we go to the next topic, though, on the subject of these smaller devices, the rechargeableness of the foot pedal that I was showing, the MVAVE, and the sort of non-bus poweredness of this, you know, they're a little bit of a limitation in that you do start having to juggle stuff. But on the upside, Bluetooth MIDI has been seamless. Every time I turn that thing on, it appears properly, just like a mouse or headset or the way that you expect these things. I haven't had to repair the device at all. And on that topic, I've also been reminded of, this is a Mac thing, the built-in network MIDI certainly routes over the internet just fine. And that's one of the other uses I have for this, the fader, the knob device, remote control of a mixer. Network MIDI over the LAN, even, it's been really flexible and very trustworthy without a lot of fiddliness. Bluetooth is almost as good as having it plugged in via USB or MIDI. Network, pretty close. It'll recover as soon as your other network devices reappear, it'll find them. And so I have a Bluetooth connection normally to my laptop with that pedal, and it appears whenever I turn it on. And I have a network, either Wi-Fi or Ethernet connection from the laptop to the rest of my rig. And that MIDI generally reconnects and transmits in my short experience of revisiting this. I haven't done this in a while, but you know, it makes for things being connected somewhat virtually without the additional having to buy more interfaces or having to even connect them via USB, and the flexibility of having the devices available locally, and that is the foot switch and pedal, also having it appear, sending them the same MIDI controllers through to my studio computer. So if I happen to be running the amp, as we're talking about, like Brett said, you know, if I want the pedal to just be there so that I don't have to use hands, I've got a pedal and it always appears. So it's, if you're sleeping on using some of the audio MIDI setup, network MIDI kind of functions and Bluetooth devices just on the Bluetooth, it seems to be pretty reliable. I've been enjoying having that additional stuff connected to stuff vibe.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm getting into Bode frequency shifters. I acquired one and it was faulty. So it went back and now I'm looking at different brands. Bode, so a Bode frequency shifter is really weird. It's kind of like a ring modulator, but not. And it sort of moves the frequencies, but not within the frequency spectrum, not within the frequency, the usual like shape that frequencies move in as you change the pitch. And it results in some really fascinating, sometimes metallic, sometimes otherworldly sounds. I've been wanting one for a really long time, but they're expensive because there's a lot of circuits involved, like they're a really complicated thing. And they're really pretty sounding or very weird, terrifying. And you can put them on bass sounds and it sounds like Jean-Marc Ujah, Oxygen, or you can put it on drums and it sounds like fucking something going through a shredder. So you can make fat and beautiful all the way through to gnarly. Gnarly is something that I'm lacking. I don't have, believe it or not, I don't have a lot of gnarly in my studio, so it's a nice thing that's got a lot of range. The one in particular that I'm looking at currently is the Dopefer A127-2, or is it the 126-2? I can't remember. Because the great thing about Dopefer is they'll say, oh, well, here's a traditional idea, like the Bode filter that was the Bode frequency shifter that was used on the big Moog modular, and it's going to go. A Dopefer will go, what if I throw this into like the extreme and do all of this other bits and pieces to it as well. And it's obviously because it's Dopefer, it's very, very sturdy and very affordable because Dopefer is awesome. So yeah, I'm still debating a whole bunch of things there. But yeah, the core question for me that it comes down to is how is this going to affect the way I write music, I create music? And if you throw like I've never thought about throwing a vocal through it, or I never really thought about throwing drums through it. And what's crazy is that those the frequencies that you were modulating the thing with, the main signal with, you can drive them like you would an oscillator. So you can be changing their frequencies and you start getting some really, really interesting pitched, but definitely not pitched things going on. So yeah, I'm quite excited about that. And I see a whole bunch of hands. Alex, talk to me.
Yeah, I was going to say try the Depther one because sorry. They said that it used to be hard to make them because you needed to really fine-tune them. Because certain values needed to be like fine-tuned towards each other, and the problem is if you change one, the other changes a bit as well. So you need to rotate, and I think it was resistances that need to be tuned right. And I think Dieter Döpfer said that it's easier today because the components have less of a tolerance. So it's easier to make a frequency shifter nowadays than it was in even 20 years ago.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard about that. And yeah, that is one really interesting thing about it. And funny thing about the whenever you get a Bode, a lot of the manuals of all the different brands have got a whole bunch of things for how to tune them in case they go out of tune. And it seems like quite a pain in the bum. Razi, talk to me.
It's really exciting. I now need to investigate if I have any software emulations of that aren't just a ring mod. But what I remember about the Bode system of frequency shifting versus like a pitch shifter is you are just using multiplication, or you're modifying all the frequencies by a fixed amount. In other words, the difference in an octave between 20 and 40 is not the same as a single digit difference in an octave between 20,000 and 10,000. So if you just increment each of those by one, as opposed to keeping them even in the spectrum, you get these insanely strange relationships and distortions of the frequency relationships of a sound. And to put that succinctly, if you're pitch shifting, you just move them all. So it sounds the same, your timbre shifts, it sounds like a different note. If you're doing this Bode stuff, you distort the internal frequency relationships of every component by a different scale depending on the frequency. So it's mathematically kind of insane to think about, but the sound, if you've ever used it on voice, if you plan to, the crazy, strange, haunted sound on ham radio when you hear single sideband broadcasts of like that strange nasal alien kind of voice quality, this is exactly how that occurs with that same sort of distortion. So yeah, you can do some voice stuff that's going to be weird.
And it's like you said, it's in regular pitch shifting, it's like if you've got 1,000 cycles, something there and something at 1,500, and you go an octave higher, that's 2,000 and 3,000.
Yeah.
But with a Bode, if you go up, it's going to be 2,000 and 2,500. So this one isn't exponentially moving within its mathematical relation. It's just moving. And when you start adding ring modulating to that, and you can control that frequency with CV. And that's where stuff gets so beautiful. Like it could be a really gentle or crazy LFO. You could be sending the pitch of the note to also that one, so everything's kind of moving together. You can do that with an LFO. You could be sending in a an envelope generator and a really fast one. Because the great thing, if it's analog, it's voltage, baby. So you can throw in a really fast envelope spike or a slow one or whatever. And there's all of this crazy stuff that, yeah, so I'm very interested in playing with this thing. Thank you. Rob, I see your beautiful hand.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with the Bode stuff, but I think I know what you're getting at, because I wanted to do the same thing a while back. And you might recall that I was trying to find some quarter inch to, 3.5 millimeter patch leads. And the reason for that was because I have the A113 subharmonic generator. So it takes a single signal in and it'll split out 4 separate bands using dividers. So you'll get that effect. And then next to that, I've got the A127 triple voltage controlled resonance filter. And that's essentially 3 CV in to control a splitting of frequencies as well, with 1 audio channel in. And that gives you 4 VCFs out. So you can start to create new channels of those components of that single voice, and muck around with those with LFO, CV amplitude, frequency, resonance, and level. And then the other one I've got there is the 137-2 wave multiplier, which is a voltage controlled wave multiplier. And that takes 4 CVs in as well and a signal in. And you can mux all that stuff up as well. And I haven't got all of the cables that I need for this yet. I'm still working on that. But my crazy batshit weird ass idea is that I want to run multiple channels out of the EMAX 2 into that series of modules and play with those in real time and record that out, because I can do that with a single stream, or I can start decomposing the frequencies, as I like. I think that's what you're talking about, Carl. Kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Bodes are different, but yes. And also with that, 2 things. One, if you're coming out of an EMAX 2, those beautiful polyphonic outputs are amazing. And make sure that you have get a DI box or something that can bump up their signal 20 dB, 20 or 30 dB.
Yeah, I got a 8-channel DI rack
Great.
sitting right underneath it all. Yep.
Because that's what I have to do with my stuff. Or if I'm going into a distortion pedal, it's got to go down 20 or 30 dB. Yeah, no, that sounds great. And also with those multiple resonators, put pads through those things and play them by hand. Oh, they're sweet. That's really left. This is kind of moving nicely into something we were talking about before we started the stream, which is acquiring secondhand gear, and the some of the ethics involved in that. Although I see Alex's hand. Alex, did you want to jump in before we take this?
I wanted to ask you a question because I'm curious. Do you actually use the multiple outputs on the EMAX?
Me?
And
Carl?
the clock input and output?
Yes. Okay. Multiple outputs. Absolutely. On every single track, I've got kicks, snares, hats, bass, and then because the EMAX is the outputs are monophonic. So I have to fudge around with stuff, where I'll put everything on, I'll pan everything to the right. This is too much information. Who cares? I'll pan everything to the right that's going out the individual channels. And then the left side is anything that's polyphonic. And so I've got kind of 8. Oh no, I've only got hooked up four outputs of the 8. The rack uses 5. But I highly recommend anyone with an EMAX, EMX2, Emulator 2, Emulator 3, fucking Emulator 4, whatever, to use all the outputs because it's such, oh, fuck, delightful. I don't use the clock. I've got the clock set up, but I don't use them for reasons. Um, yeah, for reasons. And if actually for everything as far as arpeggiators and sequences go, I run them off the computer, even the Moog 1. Because there's always constantly weird things going on. Anyway, so there's that, and I'm talking so much crap right now. And I do try to use the expression pedal input because that is a 0 to +8 volt input. So modular, it's fine. Don't go negative because you might fuck it. And on most synthesizers that have got filter expression pedal inputs, they are okay with voltages. So you check the manual and you can drive them out of a modular synthesizer. Don't put an LFO in it because LFOs go into the negative. There's lots of really cool, fun things you can do. In answer to your question, yes. Did I answer your question? Yeah, EMXs, baby. EMXs are love. Rob, talk to me.
Yeah. Perfect segue here to the secondhand gear discussion. My EMAX 2 has all channels going into a crappy old Motu 2408 ADAT unit, which somebody gave me because they said, you can have this too, but do you also want this, and here's the manual, and it only runs on 95 or XP? And I said, yes, please. So over this corner of the world, I have everything that's very old. So everything that runs off XP for the computer. I rebuilt a machine last weekend to run XP. It talks to EMAX 2, it talks to my Motu ADAT, and all of that goes into, all those channels go through ADAT to the 0190 OV1 Yamaha mixer, and then the outs out of that go into whatever effects I want in that rack. So it's funny, once you have a collection of old crap that you don't use anymore and you build an old machine, all of a sudden all that old crap becomes useful again. So I've got the Presonus Fire Studio project, which only has Firewire on the back end of it. It works. I'm plugged it in. I can turn it on. I'm using it again. And, you can buy those for nothing, like 25 bucks if somebody's not giving them away. And that's 96 kilohertz or maybe even up to 192 recording. It has an interface. And I was talking to somebody on the obsolete music software website this morning on Facebook. We were talking about backing up Windows XP laptops and backing up Windows XP machines. If you don't mind running a few more amps and watts in your house to have a second computer, I've got an XP box and I've got a Windows 7 box now, and the Windows 7 box is also connected up to a lot of old crap that I got cheap, which works amazingly good. It doesn't have to be super expensive. You can still get a lot of value out of secondhand gear. Cal.
Firstly, you'd be amazed at how handy floppy drives are still. And secondly, I forgot what secondly was. Alex, go.
Maybe this will be relevant for some people, but there are companies making old Windows 95, I think, computers based on embedded systems for like industry, where because these processors are still being used by certain industrial applications, people made gaming laptops, gaming computers out of them without a graphics card, but just a CPU. And I think if you have a really specific use case that you need Windows 95 or something, I think they're like $400 or something. I need to look up how the companies are called, but they exist. And so if you're one of the few people that really needs this thing, they exist.
Everybody needs an XP machine, dude. I'm telling you. Oh my God, don't get me started. Oh, what I wanted to say was there's these old sound cards named the Dela and the Lala. Layla? Did I say that right?
Layla, Echo.
Yeah, the Echo
I
stuff.
got one right there.
So you can hack them to operate as MIDI CV converters, which is fucking dope.
DC coupled.
DC coupled, bloody. So I'm gonna just fling back to acquiring secondhand gear and what are your thoughts on that? Should I will actually prefer to go secondhand gear. Two reasons. One, landfill. Although I want to buy new stuff. If it's from a company like Noise Engineering or Dopefer, I want to buy or Erica or Hex Inverter. Actually, most of them. I do try and buy it new just to support the company, which I think is really, really important. Frank is here and he's being very cute. I want to support the company. Secondly, my other thing is that I kind of like getting secondhand gear because I'm concerned that some new gear doesn't work. And as far as I'm concerned, if somebody's already owned it, then it stood the test of time. And if the reviews are coming back saying, oh yeah, they're fine, that's like a bunch of my modular gears secondhand. And plus a lot of that shit you can't get anymore. So I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. Alex, how do you feel about it?
Recently, I had really good experiences with buying secondhand. I think you can get some really good deals if you are patient and don't need a thing right now. Yeah, I only one time as a seller I felt like, oh, this is a bit sketchy, but then I just didn't make the sale because it was the German equivalent of Craigslist. Yeah, but I think like I wouldn't be comfortable buying an iPhone there, but usually making music is such a niche that there aren't as many scammers there, I feel, at least compared to like mainstream tech products. So yeah, for me, like we bought my best friend for his birthday a little amp, and we got it like 100 euros less than it was new, and it works. It sounds amazing. He even gave the bag with it. So yeah, thumbs up for me.
That's awesome. And for those who aren't aware, 100 euros equates to 50 awesome pizzas. Rob, what do you got?
That's so important to know, Carl.
It is.
Yeah, so this is about buying habits, right? So I think a lot of people out there, let's say I'm going to make a wild guess, 90% of statistics on the internet are made up, including this one. So let's say that 85% of the market music scum, and you can't afford anything more than $500 item, right? And then maybe there's 10% who can afford something up to $1,000, and then there's 5% who can own, for whatever reason, however they got the money, it doesn't matter, but they can afford something that's prestige. It's analog royalty, Think about that for a second. Most people are buying cheaper equipment, and if you're buying new equipment under $500, you're feeding into the scum corporations that are making cheap crap to sell to the masses to make a fast profit. However they want to do it. It's a lot of noise. However they want to do it. So the other way to look at this is if you can't afford to buy a new analog synth, which most people can't, then buying secondhand makes a lot of sense. Buyer beware. There's always going to be challenges. There's going to be maintenance. There's going to be problems that you want to maybe research on Reddit. So, you do need to be educated, and reaching out to somebody who's got more experience to you is going to be the right answer. But I would argue that you can buy a lot of equipment under $500 that's maybe 10, 15, 20 years old, which works perfectly well. And because it's simpler and easier to use, you're probably going to get a lot more use out of it if you spend the time with it. If you're always drawn to the new shiny objects that are so deep that you never learn how to use them all, I'm not sure you're going to get the value for money out of like a $750 synth if you had to spend more time on a secondhand $300 synth like a K2000. I mean, that's still deep. You're never going to find the bottom of that pit. So I don't know what others think about this, but I've actually got a ton of use out of secondhand gear, and I've still got a lot. And Carl has taught me, if I'm not using something, bundle it up, sell it to another musician, because they're going to get a lot of value out of it, right? Just my thought.
Thank you. I do appreciate your thought. Thank you very much. Razi, what's your thought?
It gets complicated fast. There's that threshold where a lot of the really desirable vintagey classic gear prices itself way out of what people can make today as a pretty electrical equivalent with similar quality. Possibly the components are just cheaper. Possibly it's the labor that's cheaper. Possibly it's the desirability factor of something being rare and the older version that brings the price, out of whack. So there's kind of a lot to consider right off the bat with a good number of, say, compressors and mic preamps and synthesizers and certainly guitars. I mean, nobody's going to be buying a 59 Les Paul and pretending it's the kind of thing they're going to bring around to gigs, and beat up when the Court Factory equivalents are $200 instead of $500,000. But as somebody like the way that you can benefit from the secondary market is to let go of the classic eye and let go of the desirability factors and sort of just dip into a little bit of chance taking, because the gulf between classic expensive vintagey stuff and just some crap that's around that may have similar functions is so vast, and it's so many orders of magnitude. The difference between spending $20,000 on a named classic synthesizer and $20 on a circuit bent, piece of undesirable used gear, you can get a lot of those things in your collection and get a lot of mileage out of them. But you have to let go of I have a specific purpose in mind. And I guess one of the ways, like if you've watched Heinbach's channel, he buys a lot of test equipment that wasn't necessarily extremely expensive, but the minute he puts it on his channel, now it is. So there's that problem a little bit. But there's lots of things that make noises and process signals that aren't on the mainline Reverb top 10, stood the test of time with a brand name, that you can get. And taking it down an even step further, there are a lot of kits of things that do stuff that are dirt cheap. And I've got kind of a drawer full of projects waiting to go in that regard. So you do have to be willing to do some of the soldering or wiring and stuff. But that's kind of a long preamble to, I'm wondering about the sort of ethical and political stance of some of the truly cheaper stuff out there. I like to sort by price at least once when I'm looking for something. If there's largely equivalent piece of gear by a company where I don't recognize the name because they really just made it up for this factory run of stuff that's an obvious knockoff of the brand name thing, same case, same different screen print on the front, but it's from the same line, same production line. Like, you learn to recognize that stuff. And I've been tempted, switch to Temu or AliExpress and see that it's $7 for an item that's $700. And it's like, I really want to try that. I really want to know what the electrical difference is, where they skimped on the components. And if I'm like ruining somebody's life by encouraging terrible working conditions or stolen intellectual property. And then I'm going to stop there, but that splits off into your moral stance and whether or not that's sort of a weird imperialistic view of what's actually happening. And maybe you are just sending money to somebody who's going to make a living. I don't know. It gets really confusing at that point. But there is that whole spectrum of, yeah, when I'm shopping for a piece of gear that I know I need and sorting to, you know, like Amazon's by price and then looking over on some of the Chinese retailers, it's a tough call on that. And it does open up a lot of like thinking about it.
Okay, this is good. Thank you very much. And just remember that there's a lot of, and mainly my thing is, you know, modular, like Moog kind of sequential, definitely. And a lot of modular stuff that is made by a group of people in their garage. So although components will be made in China, usually boards are printed in China, stuff's assembled in the United States or Australia or Europe. So it's that's one really wonderful thing about modular synthesis is that you are dealing with a boutique thing, and Dopefer's not as big as you think. Roland is not as big as you think, and they are, you know, like Hex Inverter was and Erica Synths. They're just a couple of people going, oh, what would happen if let's fuck with this shit, and that's really exciting because you get to support those people. But nevertheless, there's a really important thing here. Ivan, I want to hear your thoughts on this very important thing.
This is actually a really important thing. Because like, you know, like you can get your hands on something, but you know, like that comes at a you know, self cost of, you know, where your brain's going to go at with how the employees are being treated. At the same time, like some equipment, you might end up with very little in the way of choice because like I do have a Pro One, you know, copy made by, you know, an unmentionable company, and it generally speaking sounds pretty good. Kevin Key also, that is his road version of a Pro One, because if you've got a classic Pro One, you're not taking it on the road to get it trashed. You know, that's just not happening. So you use the thing that will fill in for it well enough to get you across the finish line, because there's just not a lot of other choices these days. And like we have allowed ourselves to, you know, kind of self fuck ourselves on that one because like, you know, printing boards, you know, back in the 90s when I was working at Exec PC, there was a board printing place up the hill from us. Like we had to walk past it to get to the other building. And that wasn't the only place that I knew that printed boards, you know, here in Wisconsin of all places. You know, like there was a place not that far from us that, you know, made, you know, from scratch made LCD screens. They're all gone now. And, you know, we want to know who to blame for that. We should grab a mirror. And I'm going to collectively use the word we because it is we that did this to ourselves. At the same time, buy an old used gear, like when you can, yes, because you're going to maybe save some money, very likely save some money, and it will be great. You know, it has withstood the test of time, and you know, good gear is good gear. You know, like my Euro rack is mostly used gear. My, you know, 19-inch rack of, you know, big old 19-inch rack equipment is 100% used gear. None of that is new. And you know, like Carl, I mean, I've got a A110 VCO that I bought from you. The one with Kevin Key's signature on it. And the next time we fly out to LA, let's talk ahead of time. Maybe we can make a trade.
What do you want for it? Because that thing, you know, I'm sorry. It's funny that since I sold that, Angelspit sound changed because it's out. You can tune it on the back, but it's out of tune. So when it goes like an octave and a half, it goes out of tune. And that was Angelspit sound It was so fun. I love that VCO.
Well, it just come up with something interesting that, would make a good replacement for,
Mm.
in this direction, and like I'll put it in a box and drag it out with me.
Yeah, I uh I forgot what I was going to say. But thank you, Ivan. Did you want to copy anything else there, or can
Oh
I throw
yeah,
this
no,
to Alex?
like I also, like, during pandemic I picked up the Alita, made in the Soviet Union, restored in Ukraine, and now it's got working MIDI, which is great for me. It was, really, for an ancient mono synth, it was not what I would describe as a great price, but it was a great price for me at the time. And I love it, so it will always be here. But that thing's never going on the road, because if the slightest thing happens to it, if its power adapter gets damaged, I cannot replace it. And then I've got I did some shopping at Armin's back then, and I've got a Core M1 and a stack of chord cards for it. And God, that thing, it's great.
Thank you.
Not going to be traveling.
Yeah, I agree. Alex, talk to my, and thank you, Ivan. Talk to my face.
I think there are currently some really good deals on music equipment, and I think the reason is kind of sad because the economic circumstances of many people have worsened a bit. Sorry to be a downer. But on the other hand, I think generally more affordable or cheaper are things like beginner synthesizers, because usually people buy them like microcorgs or mini logs or something in that direction, innovation circuit, because people buy that and then upgrade to something bigger and then sell their beginner version. So if you want to get hardware, I think that would be the best way to look first for those former beginner synthesizers. And also, I think former versions of that have been replaced by a better version, like the original TR8, is now really, really affordable, because there's like the TR8S, which does sampling and has more outputs and such. But if you just need a drum machine, I think that's a really good deal on a drum machine that sounds solid. And the last thing is like something like the K2000, like former flagship things that aren't as sexy as, let's say, Jupiter 8, and thus a bit forgotten. And so you can get really solid equipment for a really good price if you're willing to read the menu.
Thank you. Yes. And again, K2000. You will never, ever, ever get to the bottom of a K2000. Every single K2000 owner will agree with me on that one. You'll never get to the bottom of it. You'll never get sick of it. And I will say it does Jupiter rate as good as a Jupiter rate does. And it's digital. And they're $200-300 on Craigslist. Thank you. Razzie, hit me.
Man, I don't know how this is going to affect me tomorrow and the next purchase and the next purchase, but it is something that I haven't thought about as deeply in a long time. And no matter which source we buy from, if, like I was talking about, sort by price, the biggest problems with, well, the most obvious problems seem to be the rare earth extraction doesn't change if we're buying it from one company or another, and the pollution from that isn't really figured into our cost. That's externalized to the nations that are saddled with that stuff. And also the next step after the e-waste cost is also externalized to places where there's not as much power to regulate the safety and human cost and the toll that it takes on health and well-being to dispose of and re-extract. So it's going to happen. It's just going to happen in reprehensible, terrible ways on both ends of that. So it really does lead to the logical, ethical conclusion of reduce, reuse, recycle, reuse is the biggest one there, and any opportunity to reuse your gear and keep it out of those two pools of horror, all of a sudden snaps into focus as one of the most important things we can do as a political and human rights statement. So thanks for bringing it up. Cool angle.
Thank you. Very well said. Thank you. Brett, and if it's okay, I'm going to go in after you, Brett. Hit me.
I'm going to kind of I'm just going to kind of echo everyone's sentiment here as well. You know, I have what at this time would be used gear. It wasn't, I mean, it was, and I guess it was always used gear, except for the PC4. But, you know, there's always that concept of new to me. This is what I could afford. So, yeah, you know, when I was first starting, and this kind of goes into, you know, my point. If you're just beginning, whatever you can afford as a barrier of entry to give you the most bang for the buck. Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's a K2000. Let's be real, it's an awesome synth, but it might also just be a piece of VST or a guitar or something like that that you use uniquely and differently. And I will give you that, you know, in my own experience, you know, taking an oscillating fan and turning it into a synthesizer is really the key there. You know, it's really the thing that kind of leveraged what a synthesizer is to me. Either way, at the end of the day, typically you're trying to create some kind of unique sound. And so my point to it would be, if you're going into this, you know, as a beginner, and you're wanting to find something that fits for you, both budget wise and whatnot, go to a music store and put your hands on equipment. See how it feels to you. Find the thing that feels good and inspires you to tweak. What, you know, if that is software, then easier, you know, to do at home. But if it's hardware, is, you know, just go try stuff. What you'll end up learning from that is the things that are going to allow you to be a better musician and work with that gear for as long as possible. And you know, really at that point, you know, it's about bang for the buck. I mean, either way, you're going to put out the outlay. Make sure that when you do that, you're trying to take all these things into consideration, you know. Yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
Thank you very much. I will actually, I'm going to echo a lot of that. I'm going to throw this to Rob, then I'm going to go on a rant.
Did you go? I'll give you 2 examples of my point of view here. I've done electronic design. I was electronic engineer at university and computer science. I did software engineering all my career. And I'm sensitive to copyright, right? So copy somebody's software, you know, that you give credit where credit's due. Copy somebody's hardware, yeah, that's kind of breaking the law if you're a manufacturer. And so when I buy equipment from companies, I like to support that company, like Carl said. So, for example, you know, I was really pissed off when Moog kind of liquidated itself. I was really hoping to have like a retirement job there in Asheville one day and don't care how much I get paid. I just love the company. You know, I don't have much of their gear, but I love them because they are authentic, original equipment manufacturers. And when I bought the ARP Odyssey, the remake, I purposely bought the Korg version because Korg worked with Friend and the guys from the ARP team to make an honest reproduction, a modernized version of that with all the filters in it. And I could have bought the Behringer copy version of it, but I didn't want to because they're not the OEM. I've bought Behringer racks like DI box, Multicom, Multi Ultra Pro, you know, compressors. They're good at making that stuff. It's affordable. It works. It's reliable. But I wouldn't buy a Ferrari from you know, let's say Chrysler. Why would I? If you're going to buy a Ferrari, you go to Italy. You support the company that you love. So I have issues buying any copied synthesizer from a company that's not the OEM. They're not the original equipment manufacturer. I would rather go to the company that actually has the rights and the intellectual property and the fortitude to back a product. You know, case in point, Commodore 64. They're rebuilding themselves. I'm happy to back the new owners of Commodore 64 who have the original designers on their team. The developers of Commodore 64 are heavily involved in Commodore.net. Love it. Absolutely love it. Would I want to go and play Angel Squirt? No. Would I want to go and play ACBC? Hell no. It's just a cop-out. Like, why would I fund somebody else who's stealing money and livelihood away from the original producer or the original manufacturer? I don't. Just wouldn't do it. That's just my view.
And thank you very much. This is a really interesting conversation because it's important. It's like, hey man, I'm not going to lie to you. Everyone's poor and everyone's getting, I don't think things are getting better. And I think it's really important to make music. Like if the gift or curse of making music is inside you, you got to exercise that. I'm all about secondhand for the same reason that it's been discussed today, that you're saving landfill, you're doing all of other stuff. If I can buy something new, I will buy something new, like I said, and I'll get it from, the brands I really care about. A brand that I love with modular synths, I will go on and on about Dope for forever, because they are inexpensive. They are all over the second-hand market. They are tough. I've had Dope for gear that I've owned for 25 years. I have toured the world with it. It has gone in rack cases that have been in planes, in trucks. It's still working. Every now and then I'll get a dry solder. But I love Dopefer. It sounds beefy. I've said this before. Some of the best filters I've ever heard are Dopefer filters, and they're cheap. Like the diode filter, it's like $80. I've seen them on Reverb and on Craigslist for $60. They are so good. The Wasp filter, everybody needs to own a Dopefer Wasp filter. The SEM filter, there's so much of that stuff that is just bloody awesome. And the oscillators are solid. So if you want modular and you want secondhand, but you don't have a lot of money, Dopefer. And it's so precise, man. It's really precise. And then it was also mentioned, some of the Korg stuff super cheap as well, and the Roland stuff super cheap. Still works. Use it. If you are female, or trans or queer, Los Angeles has a thing called the Fem Synth Lab, the Feminist Synth Lab. And it's a resource where you can go and actually borrow synthesizers like it's a library. And they got a whole bunch of stuff in there. And it's a great resource. And I think different places are doing a similar thing as well. So you can try before you buy or just keep borrowing stuff. So hunt around for this kind of thing because they are there. And plus with it comes a really awesome community who are fucking around with synths and getting to know stuff. And like I said, if you got to make music, no matter what you choose to do, there will be no judgment from me. There has been judgment in the past, but that's something I have to get over. That's my bullshit, not yours. And a fun question that I always have to young people like us is, are you trying to rebuild the dream drool studio that you imagined when you were in your teenage years or early 20s? Because I look around me and everything that I own here, it's like when I was a kid, I wanted this and now I have it. And I'm just wondering, is there some psychological thing inside me that goes, I need that mixing desk? It's basically free. But when I was 22, that mixing desk was supreme, except I don't have an Atari. Um, I don't know. Strange question. I see hands as soon as I said that. Everyone put their hand up. Alex, what's on your mind?
Partially, I think like there are certain synthesizers that have like this place in my head because when I wanted to make music with synthesizers and I went to the music shop and I saw them and I started reading forums and buying magazines that are were things that I couldn't reach but really wanted like I think really big were the Korg Radius and the Nord Modular and I think some of the Electron stuff I already got and but other things sort of fell by the wayside. Like I realized that I don't really need those and that it might be overkill. And sometimes something that does the same thing but better came out. So partially yes, partially no. Really depends on the thing. But I think especially the radius and the non-modular because they were like really formative for me.
Thank you very much. Ivan, draw at me.
Of course, that's what we're doing. Us and our fellow youths are, rebuilding the fantasy version of our labs from when, we were even more youthful. And it's because now we can afford to, for two reasons. One, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember what it was like back in the 90s, but in the early 90s, if you were making a nickel 98, you were doing well. Like when the Korg M1 came out, I remember seeing it in Chicago vividly because there it was beautiful, it sounded amazing. And if I wanted to buy one, it was going to take me 6 years to save up for it. And that was assuming that I didn't do things like eat food during that time. Whereas these days, it's a vanity purchase that I made on a freaking Saturday afternoon because I was just like, well, shit, I want one. And, and then it showed up and I was happy. And there was no way that I was going to do that back in the day. So yeah, of course we're building out with equipment that, we drooled over back when it was new. And like, that's kind of a good thing. Like something good for our souls in there. Um, because we can recapture, things that were, parts of us that were lost. Um, and by and large, I mean, this is my space is pretty much what I was hoping for back then. Um, I was a weirdo and often imagined kinds of gear that back then weren't even available yet because they hadn't really been invented yet. So, like, digital recording was something that I was absolutely certain was going to be normal in the near future, and now it is. I remember going into a long discussion at one point back in the day, talking about like 3D sound editing in some like crazy, you know, off the top of my head ways that, now that's actually normal. Uh, we call it granular synthesis. And so, it's nice to be able to do the things that I wanted to be doing. Like that I think is key right there. It's helping us to, expand and actually find new horizons and, experience creativity in ways that we, previously couldn't.
Thank you. I do remember walking into a guy's rehearsal music studio only a few years ago, and it was 90s, early 90s. And I just went, oh my God. And he even had this massive old, piece of shit analog desk, and it was like 32 tracks, and it took up half the room. And it's like, that is so unnecessary, so outdated, so stupid, but so cool. Um, And look, Brett, I see your hand. I'll throw it to you a second. To me, the ultimate piece of gear poison is that photo of, and it's a desktop I go to sometimes, is the photo of Dwayne Gotel with an EMAX and a fucking Mirage, a roller gaff tape, discs line up, and a couple of distortion pedals. And that photo, dude, when you bury me, you can print that out as a Polaroid and put it in my hand, because
That photo is inspirational.
it is. Even the hair, everything about that. And you know what I'm talking about. Like, that photo is just, you can smell it. You smell it. And I smell moldy carpet. I smell stained beer, and I smell people who are eating lentils and BO. That,
Maybe
because
delayed.
that was my university, and Hairspray. That was my fucking university. That was my teenage years. So yeah, it's so funny. And when I see that, I just go, Jesus, yeah, adapt. Everyone knows that photo, man. Carl's shutting up now. Brett, get me out of this.
I'm the wrong guy to get you out of it, man. I'm just going to get you deeper. No, I am in full agreement with everyone else here. Yes, absolutely. The reason that we talk so much about the K2000 proof, the reason I have a PC4 is because it took that next step. And that is I think what happens, is that when we're young and we get inspired by this, we can't afford them all, even though we learn incessantly about what they do. And that kind of reflects what Alex was talking about a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it is the dream of, okay, I want to be able to use this tool. I understand this tool does what I want to do. And so you learn it before you ever have the ability to have it. And by the time you get it, then there's a whole new level of exploration, but it's not like that drive to learn the next tool went away, which then goes into our gear acquisition syndrome.
Thank you. I want to pick up on this. Rezi, what are you thinking?
I got another opportunity to be the voice of contrarian anti-logic. I absolutely could not afford the power bill for an SSL Studio room that I wanted or thought I wanted when I was 18, let alone the tape and time to align the machine and stuff. And I think I've probably sold on more teenage fantasy gear that I managed to get over the years than I've kept. Aside from a few pieces that honestly I didn't know I even wanted until much later, like when I was in my 30s or closer to that. And I sort of imprinted on some more useful and affordable and universally applicable for things that I do and get done and enjoy. But yeah, I don't remember exactly where I thought I'd end up, 40 years later or 30 years later. But things changed so much in the 2000s, like as far as what you could do with 2 orders of magnitude less costly gear that you could fit on your desk rather than, in a specially built room, that it all went out the window. All of the illusions of needing, I really have to have a tape recorder and console and outboard gear. Once VSTs and desktop recording and editing turned into a thing where you could do true multi-tracking and recording and composition and mixing and mastering on the same machine on a desktop by the end of the 2000s, it was just like, yeah, I'm selling a lot of that shit. And, I ended up with a lot of, well, where that went. I mean, it's obvious. I think we all have a pretty good familiarity with which expensive things got replaced by software things that you can actually get. That's that. That's about the thought.
Thank you. Alex, do you want to jump in on this sexy time?
Mine is a bit of a tangent, so maybe if you have yours that's more related to the topic, then maybe you go first.
It is interesting that it is true that uh it's so much easier making music now. It's faster, it's easier. Um in some ways that's good, in some ways that's not so good because I don't know, when you use gear, it's got a sound. And I've used for example EMAX plugins, and I'm going to be a wanker. They don't sound the same. Um EMAXs sound raw and dirty, and they sound raw and fucking dirty. Whereas, you know, plugins don't. But a plugin, like a plugin 8-bit sampler, takes 20 seconds to do something. With an EMAX, it takes fucking forever. It takes days. Because you gotta send it, sample it, cut it up, send it over, trim it, blah, 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 blah. Whole bunch of fucking around. Um, but you know, one thing I think is missing is that that's a part of the meditation of sound creation and music making. Like here I am working on this sound of the bass, and I have to like let's say I got one of Ivan's things and Ivan's recordings, and I'm turning that into a bass sound, and you know, because of it's taking more time, it becomes more of a meditative experience. It's difficult for me to verbalize this because even as I say it, I think, wow, Carl, you sound like a wanker. But that's why I love Emaxes and stuff. And yeah, thanks. And also you like the whole thing about putting it through distortion pedals and everything else. However, sometimes you just want to use the distortion pedal plugin. You don't want to go through the DS1. You don't want to fucking fuck around with putting stuff through different DIs so it's not distorting and crawling around on your knees going, why isn't this thing working today? Which is every fucking day with me. Um, yes. Um, um, I did have something else I wanted to mention, but I don't remember what that was right now. It's gone. Okay. Rob, did you want to jump in on this? Because Alex wants to take us on Happy Somewhere Else Land.
Yeah. Ooh. So what is your sound? We've talked about this before, you know? Like what is your musical signature, if you like? It's funny because when I hear a song that Carl's made, it always sounds like Angelspit. Why is that? Because of his composition, because the way he layers instruments, because of the way that he makes beats and bass lines electronically. And that's something to be said for. That's what brings your audience back to you because they like that signature. And for me, if I was to sit there with Native Instruments Ultimate with millions of instruments and controls and knobs available, or Omniverse with millions of instruments in there, and I had unlimited RAM, then I have the potential to sound just like everybody else. Whereas if I pick up my bass guitar and I slap that bass in my haphazard, nonsensical way that's just me, I can listen to that and go, hey, that's me. I played that. You know, if I play the drums, I know what I can and can't do on the drums. And if I play the drums the way I play the drums, I know it's me. So if I put my drums and my bass together, it doesn't really matter what effects I put on top. It's me. I can always go back and say, I played that. Same thing with a keyboard. I might be good, I might be crappy. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether you're professionally trained or you play by ear. Your sound is your sound. And that's really important as a musician, is to define your sound. And I think that, you know, unlimited memory and unlimited virtual instruments is cool if you're looking for your sound and you stick to it. That's the important part. That's just me. That's just my opinion, but that's what I had.
Yeah, and thank you. It's such an interesting that's interesting because it's like I think part of your sound is the meditation and the thinking about stuff. I've been told that the new May album, for example, sounds like Angelspit because I did it. And I used the same gear and I used a similar process. Although God, I love May's bloody good composer. Um, but it's got that sound. And I think that if you're looking for your sound, I think hardware's a great way to find it. Or maybe not hardware. I don't want this to turn into a hardware wank rant. I think it's really, and this is the important thing about hardware is it takes longer. And in that longer time, you're really getting to question, is this baseline that I have, is it worth it or is it crap? And then I have to work it again. So as you're actually fucking around with hardware and going tweak on your EMAX or whatever it is you're using, your crappy LK2000, whatever, I just said crappy LK2000, and you're working on that baseline, because it's taking so fucking long and you've played the baseline instead of 3 times, 300 times, you've had the opportunity to change it, develop it and move it, which is what rock and roll is all about. It's about mulling over, making it better. You know, I hate that bit. Well, if I change that, now I like that bit. And with that comes, you know, your sound and your sound choices. So it's very important to take your sweet freaking time, I think. But another question I had, and Alex, I want to dive over to you, is has the culture of gear acquisition changed? Because I remember when I was younger, and somebody said this before, that there was so much more research went into something. Maybe it's just me. I still do research though, but you know, actually, no, I recant that question, because there's so many YouTube things that are, you know, if you want to get a piece of gear, you're going to see, what does Alex from Vulture Culture say about this piece of gear? You know, what do the reviews say? What is it? Let me watch more, you know, people playing this thing and see what it sounds like. Yeah. So forget it. I answered myself. Brett, did you want to talk about gear, or because Alex is biting at the chomp, but talk to me, Brett, and then we're going to jump to Alex.
I lost my train of thought. Go for it.
Okay. You rock. Alex, hit me.
Maybe to answer your question first, I think it has maybe I have the wrong perspective, because I just started out when YouTube started being a thing. And I remember choosing my first synthesizer based on the first synthesizer reviews on YouTube by Sonic State and such. But I feel like people are very quick to buy these days, at least the people active in forums and Reddit and such. For me, it was always like thinking what's available to buy, what's available, and maybe when can I afford it, and reading all the reviews, watching the few videos that were out. And also something I did was thinking, okay, do I go for something that's unique, or do I go for something that's easily replaceable? And I usually went for the thing that was easily replaceable because it was already a hit, or had many, it was like by a bigger company and such. And this used to be a huge consideration for me, which is ironic because in the end I didn't end up gigging so much, where gear being replaceable would have been maybe the best the best use of that feature.
Yeah, all I can say is yes. And also, why have I always wanted to get a Quasar MIDI synth? But yes. I reckon next time you get something, don't worry about the replaceability. Just go with it. And I was thinking during this conversation, you know, we're talking about, you know, getting gear if you can't afford it. Why don't you go to a thrift shop and buy the most crappiest piece of fucking, you know, like that Yamaha PSS 170 piece of junk that I have? See what you can do with it. Like literally see what you can do with that thing or something like it. And it'll cost you nothing. And when you finish, you just take it back. That sort of thing's really, really interesting to me. And that's the great thing about a sampler as well, is that you say, well, I'm going to do R&B this week, but next week I'm going to dive into Ivan's samples and make some hardcore industrial or get some of that stuff. And loop it so it becomes this beautiful weird thing. Yeah. Made me think. So
Because Ivan is beautiful and weird too, right?
Ivan is beautiful and weird.
Yeah.
I wrote a song about Ivan's beautiful weirdness. Ivan is so beautiful and weird. Ha ha ha. Thanks. You're welcome. We've covered some really great areas today. Of course, those synths are no longer hidden or affordable. And thank you to everybody in the chat. Do we want to talk about something else, or do we want to bugger off? Do we want to go bugger off to MTV TV?
I was all set to talk about design for 2 hours, but hey, you know.
We'll pick that up next week. I do want to talk about design. But I'm thinking we could hit that one next week because I've got a lot of questions about design and logos and colors, and all that jazz. Maybe we'll do that one next week.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you want to bugger off? We should so bugger off. Okay, we're gonna bugger off. This has been The Art of Rock, where we talk about bloody stuff and cool shit, like making music and that stuff. Every bloody Saturday it's here. Oh yeah. Twitch or YouTube, take your pick. This is made possible by Angelspit's Patreon. Thank you so much for everybody being a part of it. You can join for free or for as little as $3 a month. It's up to you. It's all good. Angelspit's new album is called Red End, and it's El Doperino, I reckon. I'm very happy with it. The Industrial Incisions playlist. I want you to go and listen to this playlist. And I want you to listen to the bands in it because a lot of the bands are here. And please remember to bloody pimp it, and follow those bands. Also, thank you, Adam. You're a fucking legend. Vulture Culture, Wednesday night. We're all hanging out there talking about synths. And it's really good stuff. Rezi, thank you.
Hey, thank you. It's great to have this forum. Really appreciate it.
Well, you keep it going, and thank you. Everybody else who was a part of this madness, this is everybody, and some of these people may not have been here, but go find some music from these amazing people. We are now, Diana, get ready to do the Raider Rooney, and it's always fantastic because I just fucking lost it. I can find it. I believe in myself. We're going to go to MTV TV. So if you're watching this on Twitch, YouTube or Facebook or something else, we're going to raid now on Twitch to MTV TV. If you've got a video, send it to them and they will play it. Diana, hit that magic button. We're going to hang back here and chat. And thank you. This is awesome. They're always very awesome. I've thought a lot. Carl's side profiles reminded me of Radiohead for some reason. Thanks. Somebody said oh shit, yeah. Give me the link for that. How's that raid going?
Rated.
All right. We are getting, we're going to hang here and thank you again. And I do know how to do this because I am such